It's been an eventful few days. I was on my balcony bed when I heard my name being called. It was my brother. Entering his bedroom, he's on the floor next to his bed. He said he couldn't stand up. His speech was slurred and he was drooling a little. He told me he'd taken an overdose some hours earlier and had drunk some whiskey in the hope it would add more potency to the cocktail of prescribed medicines he'd taken. I asked how many pills had he taken, and he said a handful. I rang the ambulance service and they arrived within 20 minutes. With Barry on board, I said I'd follow on my bike, but when I locked the bike opposite King's College Hospital, couldn't find my brother's set of keys. Had I left them in the flat door, lost them, or were they in the flat? I rode the 1.5 miles back to the flat and was hugely relieved to find them in the kitchen. It was about midnight when I finally arrived at the hospital and was directed to the area my brother was. He was laying on and strapped to a patient trolley in the corridor, strapped probably so he couldn't fall off. Within about 15 minutes, a guy introduced himself and said he didn't like to talk to patients in the corridors and had temporary use of a room close by where he could talk to us in private before Barry was wheeled back out to the corridor. The guy was part of the psych team working at King's. Back in the corridor, we waited for about half an hour before Barry was given a more permanent room to stay whilst in the hospital. He had blood tests, an ECG and a head scan. All results were thankfully normal. Amazingly, he wasn't to be sectioned but allowed home, and about 7 hours later we were both home. Barry taking a bus and me riding the bike. Pleased to say he got home without incident. Considering what he'd been through, his mood was quite upbeat. A week earlier, I'd made an appointment for him to see his dentist because a crown had fallen out. The appointment was for 4 p.m. on the 9th of February, the day after that suicide attempt. Yet, incredibly, he still wanted to keep that dental appointment. 2 of the noticeable side effects of that attempt at suicide was slurred speech and wobbly legs. The option of a bike ride was, he thought, too risky, so he'd walk and take a bus. Hours passed and Barry didn't return. Walking past his room, I noticed the phone's answering machine was flashing, indicating a message had been left. I pressed play and it was an ambulance guy letting me know Barry was at King's College Hospital again, but this time after falling over 3 times on his way to see that dentist. A kind lady had phoned for the ambulance and waited next to him until it arrived. In this second hospital visit on 2 consecutive days, Barry sat on a chair near cubicle 10, where he stayed the night before. He had abrasions, his knees were aching, and a chipped tooth as a result of those falls, but still looking and feeling reasonably well, considering what he's been through. He was waiting to have another scan, and when that was done, and if all was well, he'd be taken home by ambulance. I left the hospital without Barry. In the short walk from where I'd secured my bike to the hospital, I'd managed to lose one of the keys of the 2 locks securing my bike. That meant I had to walk the 1.5 miles home and got back just after 12:30 a.m. Back in the flat, which doubles as an invisible torture chamber, I fell asleep quite quickly on my balcony bed. Although reluctant to sleep in the flat, I stayed because of Barry and woke a number of times in the night with burning sensations, as is the case every time I sleep here. A familiar voice woke me at around 7:30. Barry had just got back from the hospital. He'd been there, mostly sitting on a chair, without sleep for about 15 hours, yet still seemed quite chipper, and asking where the bike was, forgetting that I told him I'd lost one of the keys and had to walk home. But he was in good spirits throughout Tuesday, but only managed an hour's sleep in the evening, which thankfully was a good sleep rather than a tortured one. The real test would be the sleep later that night. The morning after, and while he was still on his bed, I asked how it went. Sadly, it was back to what for him is the nightly horror, though he did get up around 2 p.m. and has been well, rode to Morrison's to do some shopping, and is now cooking his meal. So, a very eventful last couple of days.